Starsky and Hutch put two detectives on the street every week, and the real criminal courts kept pulling this cast back the other way. One of them was a genuine New York police detective. Another pleaded no contest to a shotgun. 4 of these 8 are gone. Number 1 is the man behind the wheel of the red Ford Torino with the white stripe. Paul Michael Glaser played Detective David Starsky, the Brooklyn transplant, the Army veteran, the one whose face did the worrying while his partner did the thinking. He drove that car like a man who could not sit still, and for 4 years the whole country believed it. What the country did not know was that he was trying to get out. Glaser was born in Cambridge, Massachusetts in 1943, the only son of a well-known Boston architect trained at MIT. He studied theater at Tulane and took a Master of Fine Arts at Boston University. His first film was Fiddler on the Roof. He was 32 when the pilot aired and 36 when the last episode went out. By the second season, he wanted out badly enough to sue his own producers. He asked a court to release him from his contract, and the production began quietly building a way to survive without him. The return happened only after he was given creative control over scripts, the right to direct episodes, and a raise. Then he objected to the violence, and the writers softened an entire season around him. After that, he asked to leave again. A 5th season was planned and abandoned. The size of that raise sits on Wikipedia without a citation, and the jump is startling. $5,000 an episode became $35,000. Converted at official inflation figures, which I did myself, that is near $190,000 an episode today. What happened after the badge came off is worse than anything the show ever filmed. He married Elizabeth Glaser in 1980. In August of 1981, giving birth to their daughter, El, Elizabeth received a blood transfusion, and that transfusion carried HIV. Nobody knew. She did not know for 4 years. When she and the little girl fell ill and the whole family was finally tested, Elizabeth was positive, El was positive, and so was their 1.5-year-old son, Jake. El died 3 years later, just after her 7th birthday. Elizabeth died in December 1994 at 47, by then a national campaigner whose name is still on the foundation she built. Glaser directed The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger, directed The Cutting Edge, and directed for Miami Vice, which brought him a single Emmy nomination in 1985, verified in the Television Academy's own records. He never received one for Starsky and Hutch. Today, he is 83, living in California, painting and selling digital art, tying the work back to the foundation that carries his wife's name. Starsky solved his cases inside the hour. Glaser spent 13 years watching the people he loved lose to something no detective, on any show, had a script for. Number 2 is the blonde half. David Soul played Detective Ken Hutchinson, the divorced one from Duluth, the quiet one, the one whose anger arrived late and arrived cold. The two of them were openly affectionate on screen at a time when American television men were not, and Soul confirmed years later that people in the industry had mocked them for it. He was born David Richard Solberg in Chicago in 1943, the son of a Lutheran minister who served as a relief official during the rebuilding of Germany. The family moved constantly. He finished high school in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, spent 2 years at Augustana College, then a year in Mexico City, where students taught him guitar, and he decided music was the point of him. In 1966, he went on The Merv Griffin Show wearing a mask, calling himself the Covered Man, and told the audience this: "My name is David Soul, and I want to be known for my music." He got his wish briefly and enormously. In 1977, while the show was still running, Don't Give Up on Us went to number 1 in the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada. Wikipedia puts its British sales at 1.16 million copies. Silver Lady went to number 1 in Britain too. The Television Academy's own database, meanwhile, records not one Emmy nomination for him, which flatly contradicts a widely copied claim that he received 4. He married 5 times and had 6 children. Mim Russeth came first in 1964. Then came the actress Karen Carlson, whom he met on Here Come the Brides. Patty Carnell Sherman followed. Then the actress Julia Nixon, who persuaded him into rehabilitation for drinking in 1989, and finally, Helen Snell, whom he married in 2010. Through the Starsky and Hutch years, he was in an open relationship with the actress Lynn Marta, who also appeared on the show. She died 7 days after he did. In 1982, Soule was charged with 2 misdemeanors, battery and spousal abuse, after striking Patty Carnell Sherman at their Bel Air home while she was 7 months pregnant. He did not attend the arraignment. The court sent him into a domestic violence counseling program, and the charges were withdrawn when he completed it. That was not the end of it. He talked about it publicly for the rest of his life, and he went into prisons to speak to inmates about it. Then came the reveal almost nobody remembers. In 1988, the man America had watched play a police officer for 4 years was cast as Michael Lee Platt, one of the 2 real bank robbers in the Miami shootout that became the deadliest day in FBI history. The film was afterwards used as an FBI training film. Hutch was shown to federal recruits as the man who killed federal agents. Soule moved to Britain, rebuilt himself on the West End, took British citizenship in 2004, and died in London on the 4th of January 2024, aged 80. His widow said he went after a valiant battle for life in the loving company of family. No cause was ever officially announced. He asked one thing of the public in 1966, and it was to be known for the music. Every obituary led with the cardigan and the police radio. Number 3 had the best entrance on the show and the smallest police powers. Antonio Fargas played Huggy Bear, the informant with his own bar, his own wardrobe, and his own vocabulary, who knew everything before either detective did and worked for nobody. 92 episodes, and he never once carried a badge. Fargas was born in New York City in 1946, one of 11 children. His father was Puerto Rican and worked for the city, and his mother came from Trinidad and Tobago. Spanish Harlem raised him. He graduated from Fashion Industries High School, broke through in Putney Swope, and worked steadily through Shaft, across 110th Street, Foxy Brown, and Car Wash. Here is a detail almost nobody connects. In 1974, he appeared in a film called Busting, and the success of Busting is what gave William Blinn the idea for Starsky and Hutch. Fargas was standing in the show's doorway before there was a door. Activists criticized him for the character. He answered plainly, telling a Providence newspaper that he was a character actor, that it was a typical role for a black actor at the time, and that it was good for him because it helped his career. For 40 years afterwards, he corrected the same misreading, insisting that Huggy was never a pimp, and that the show never told you what the man actually did, only that he was always in the know. He married Taylor Hasty in 1979 and Sandra Reed in 1989, and he has 4 children. His son Justin played 7 seasons in the National Football League as a running back for the Oakland Raiders, gaining more than 3,000 rushing yards. Fargas never stopped working. He played the lawyer Les Baxter on All My Children, spoofed his own blaxploitation years in a Wayans Brothers comedy, played Toledo in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom on a Manchester stage, and spent 23 episodes as Doc on Everybody Hates Chris. Huggy Bear even turned up in his voice on The Simpsons. In 2024, he came back to voice Doc one more time. He is 79 as this is recorded, and he turns 80 in 5 days. Every other man on this show played somebody with authority. Fargas played the one person in that world who answered to nobody, and he is the one still standing. The next man in this cast wore a police captain's uniform on screen and had already worn a real detective's shield off it. Hold that thought for 2 names. Number 4 ran the squad room, and the squad room ran on him. Bernie Hamilton played Captain Harold Doby as a man, permanently one phone call away from the commissioner, roaring at his detectives and shielding them in the same breath. Every stunt those 2 pulled, Doby had to explain to somebody upstairs. Hamilton was born in East Los Angeles in 1928, the brother of the jazz drummer Chico Hamilton. He went to Oakland Technical High School where the acting bug found him, and he served in the Army during the Korean War. Then comes the part of his life that should make anyone uncomfortable. From 1950 onwards, he was in films, and for 14 straight years he was mostly uncredited. Look at the actual credits: soldier, policeman, corporal, pearl merchant, man in a bar. No name at all, again and again. He worked for Boonwell, the Spanish master in The Young One, and still went back to bit parts. Recognition finally arrived in 1964 with 1 potato, Two Potato, a film about an interracial marriage. He was 46 when Starsky and Hutch premiered and 50 when it ended, and it made him a household face for the first time in 25 years of work. Then he almost stopped. 4 more roles. The last one an episode of The Love Boat in 1985, and that was it for Hollywood. He had somewhere better to be. Since the late 1960s, he had run a nightclub and art gallery on Sunset Boulevard called the Citadel.et, and he owned a record label called Chocolate Snowman, on which he produced rhythm and blues and gospel records for roughly 20 years. One release was his own. The title was Captain Dobie Sings the Blues. He married Maxine King in December 1950. They divorced in 1968 after 18 years and 2 children, a son named Raul and a daughter named Candy. He died of cardiac arrest at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles on the 30th of December 2008, aged 80. As a Korean War veteran, he was buried at Riverside National Cemetery in California, among rows of headstones that all look the same. Hollywood spent 14 years refusing to print his name. He spent 20 years printing his own, on his own record label, on records he owned. If these people matter to you, subscribing costs nothing and keeps this kind of work coming. There are 4 names left, and 2 of them end in a courtroom. Number 5 was hired to replace a leading man and ended up in a police report of her own. Roz Kelly appeared in 4 episodes of Starsky and Hutch across the run, playing more than one character, and one of them mattered enormously. When Paul Michael Glaser sued to leave, the production created Officer Linda Baylor as the insurance policy, and Kelly played her. Alternative scripts were written with Baylor in the squad car instead of Starsky. Then Glaser came back, and the character evaporated. That was the second time in 18 months that a network built a future around Roz Kelly and then canceled it. She was born Rosalind Schwartz in Mount Vernon, New York, in 1943, and before she acted at all, she was a staff photographer for New York Magazine, shooting Jimi Hendrix, Andy Warhol, and Diane Arbus. The lens pointed the other way first. In 1976, she played Pinky Tuscadero on Happy Days, the girlfriend of Fonzie. Pinky was meant to be permanent. The network promoted her heavily, billed her by the character's name on a Halloween special that October, and had already begun running commercials selling her for the following season. Then discord developed between Kelly, the cast, and the producers, and the character was simply dropped. Pinky survives in 2 passing mentions and nothing else. Her last screen credit came in 1983. 15 years after that, on the 29th of November, 1998, a car alarm woke her, and she fired a 12-gauge shotgun through the living room window of a neighbor's house. She shot the neighbor's car as well, and another car nearby. The neighbor was not home. She pleaded no contest and received 3 years of felony probation, counseling, and an order to pay restitution. A week later, she was sentenced to 120 days in jail on a separate matter, striking a man with her cane, and was credited with the 98 days she had already served waiting. Today, she is 83 and no outlet has reported her death. The production wrote her into a squad car because they thought they were losing Starsky. 22 years later, she was the one in the report, and there was no script doctor to fix the ending. Which of these people did the industry treat worst, and did any of them deserve what came next? Tell me in the comments, because the argument about that one has been running since the show went off the air. Number 6 is the reason this show had a real cop in it before it had a fictional one. In the 72-minute pilot movie that aired on the 30th of April, 1975, Captain Dobie was not played by Bernie Hamilton. He was played by a gravel-voiced actor named Richard Ward, and Ward sounded like a man who had genuinely taken statements from genuine liars, because he had. Before he ever acted, Richard Ward spent 10 years as a New York City police detective. 10 years. Acting did not begin until 1949, when he was already 34, and he went on to become a life member of the Actors Studio. He made his television debut in 1950 and worked the great dramatic anthologies. In 1972, he played Willie Loman in the first African-American production of Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, staged in Baltimore with Miller's own blessing. His own favorite was a play called Ceremonies in Dark Old Men. Then look at how the industry used him. Fathers, cooks, grandfathers on sitcoms. A magazine piece in 1975 carried him defending one such role against the charge that it was degrading. He appeared 3 times on Good Times as the father who had walked out. In Mandingo he played Agamemnon. He was 60 when he played the first Captain Doby, and he returned to Starsky and Hutch in a different part in the final season, shortly before the end. Death came on the 1st of July 1979 in Coxsackie, New York, from a heart attack. He was 64. 2 of his films had not come out yet. He is the father in The Jerk, which reached cinemas after he was already buried, and he is Abraham Cook in Brubaker, the prison drama, released the following year and the last thing he ever finished. His papers are held today by the New York Public Library. 7 names on this list learned how a squad room works from a script supervisor. Richard Ward learned it from 10 years of doing it, and he is the only one who never got to say so on camera. 1 name left after this one, and her episode was lifted from a real crime that happened to one of the most famous women in country music. Number 7 is the woman inside the building. Marki Bay, born Marquita Bay in Philadelphia in 1947, played Officer Minnie Kaplan, recurring through the 3rd and 4th seasons. Minnie was the police staffer the 2 detectives flirted with, teased, and relied on, and the only regular female presence in their working world. Bay played her warm and entirely unimpressed by either of them, which is exactly why she landed. She had been a leading woman 3 years earlier. In 1974, she starred as Diana Sugar Hill in the horror film Sugar Hill, playing a woman who raises the dead to avenge her murdered partner. Her debut had come in Hal Ashby's The Landlord. 5 films in 4 years, then television, and then, at 35, nothing at all. Her final credit is 1982. Why she stopped has never been publicly explained. She married the actor Don Fenwick on the 30th of April 1974, exactly 1 year to the day before the Starsky and Hutch pilot aired. Today she is 79, and reporting says that since retiring she and her husband have run murder mystery cruises in Los Angeles, although that detail has never been properly sourced anywhere, and it should be held loosely. The record on Marki Bay is thin, and pretending otherwise would do her no favors. What is certain is that she played a police officer for 2 seasons, walked away from the business at 35, and never explained herself to anybody. Number 8 never carried a badge, never joined the cast, and gave this series its single most uncomfortable episode. In March 1977, the country singer Lynn Anderson guest-starred in an hour called Long Walk Down a Short Dirt Road, playing a singer being stalked. The story was not invented. It came from a real stalking incident involving Dolly Parton, and the part was originally written for Parton herself before Anderson took it. Anderson was 29 and already one of the biggest recording artists in the country. Born in North Dakota in 1947, daughter of the songwriter Liz Anderson, she was signed after somebody heard her singing along with her mother at an industry function. She joined the Lawrence Welk Show, performing to a national audience every week. Rose Garden went to number 1 internationally. It sold 1 million copies and was certified gold in America. She charted 5 number 1s and 18 top 10 country singles, and she won a Grammy Award for Rose Garden, confirmed on the Recording Academy's own record. The marriages cost her more than the industry did. Her first husband produced her records and, by her own account, disapproved his way through her career, so she turned down a Bob Hope tour of Vietnam and a film role. The second, a Louisiana oil man she met at a rodeo, she later told United Press International had been physically abusive and had once tried to run her over with a vehicle. She fought for custody of their 2 children afterwards and lost. From 1989, she lived on a ranch in Taos, New Mexico, with the songwriter Mentor Williams. "He is technically my boyfriend," she said in 2013, "but really he is like my husband." Alcohol found her late and it found her hard. She was arrested for driving under the influence in Texas in 2004 and again in New Mexico in 2006. On the 11th of September 2014, after a minor traffic accident in Nashville, she admitted drinking and taking prescription medication, was booked, released on bond, and issued a public statement apologizing to her fans. She went through rehabilitation at the Betty Ford Center. 10 months later, on the 30th of July 2015, she died of a heart attack at Vanderbilt University Medical Center in Nashville after a brief hospital stay for pneumonia. She was 67. Brenda Lee spoke at the funeral, and doves were released over the mourners. She is interred in a mausoleum at Woodlawn Memorial Park, close to her mother. In 2018, the cemetery planted 200 rose bushes beside her, a hybrid the National Rose Society of America had named after her. The song that made her promised nobody a rose garden. They gave her one anyway, 3 years after she was gone, 200 bushes deep. 4 of these 8 are buried now. One lies under a military headstone in Riverside in a row where every stone is identical and nobody stops at it.